Welcome to yet another episode of LBS, the show whose reliability of getting another season is getting closer to zero as we speak. And do sequels prevent creativity? Kind of like politics, religion, and Star Trek, sequels in general seems to have several people split. Some people argue that sequels are a way to evolve and progress through time, but generally people seem to view sequels as unimaginative, lazy milking of the prequels' success, and only being out to look pretty on the market. Kind of like that extremely unnecessary extra pairs of shoes your girlfriend has in case she needs it. By this, a general consensus would be that sequels are just financial add-ons with no real creative input. So that in turn makes me ponder, do sequels really prevent creativity, or is this just a prejudice created after years of disappointment? The main complaint people have against sequels is claiming them to be complete knockoffs and that they are unoriginal most times, and usually point at games like Gears of War and Call of Duty when speaking of this thesis. I would not fully know this because to this date I've yet to play all the Gears of War games, and my experience with Call of Duty is limited to say the least. But what surprises me is that while that happens, games like Super Mario Galaxy 2 gets a free pass on this one. My opinion of this game is not relevant, but what is relevant, however, is that I definitely found this little gem to be more like DLC of the superior prequel rather than another entry in the franchise entirely. Furthermore, what is with the whole argument of that sequels prevent originality and being knockoffs, where you not only close your eyes and ignore examples like Super Mario Galaxy 2, but you would scream in fury if some game franchises like Mario or Resident Evil would deviate too much from the original formula. Make up your fucking mind! If you're going to bash at some games, not stick to the same formula, go all the way, do not just stop halfway, otherwise you will only appear hypocritical. But I digress. Then we have those that defend the sequels, saying that it is a brilliant way for developers to base their creative ideas upon, with good sequels being able to deviate from the original formula and find a new, brilliant narrative of the game franchise and perhaps elevating it to perfection. This is an interesting argument, and true, we have gotten some very good sequels from games like Resident Evil 4, which deviated itself quite a lot from the original Resident Evil formula, and with The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, we had the same basic formula, but had the different graphics and the sailing mechanic, which it not only makes it highly entertaining, but also timeless in my eyes. Though, on the other side of the coin, why not just playing a new, original title if you want creativity? Journey is not part of any franchise, and it is a magnificent game. Why not make a new game and not just make another sequel? Also, game series have their fair share of examples that deviate from the original and failing horribly, like that abomination, Metroid Other M. It was quite different from the rest of its franchise and angered fans for various reasons. I guess one should ask, what makes a good sequel? Well, from my narrow experience, a good sequel seems to be the ones that use their preceding titles as jumping platforms, but jump in another direction with it, while a bad sequel is one that decides to hump the starting platform like the greatest nymphomaniac in the world. Though, again, this is not absolute, seeing as some sequels try adding elements that are incredibly unfitting, depending on the franchise itself, but I'll get to that in a bit. Firstly, I will briefly deal with a question that has been hanging over this Fortnight Thought since the beginning, like an old sandwich on a fishing pole. Can you really be original in this day and age? Considering the increasing number of games on the indie market and the fact that we have literature dating back since ancient Greece, is it possible to remain original? Well, I will swiftly answer how I view upon it with saying that in the end of the day, originality is creativity. And creativity originates from inspiration. So for something to be original, inspiration is at times needed. That inspiration arises from older works of art. In some way or another, we are going to find similarities, and we can easily say that something was stolen from another if we are that picky. I might go further into this question another time, but let's leave this area for now, and return to the original question, do sequels prevent creativity? Would we be better off without sequels? Well, quite honestly, I do not stand on either side of this argument. And quite frankly, I do not think that you should do that either. The reason for me saying this is that a sequel is kind of like an antique bottle of wine. It always comes down to the source of origin. And with that I mean that sequels are actually contextual as fuck. One should not ask whether or not sequels are bad as a whole. You should value each game separately. If a game is shit, then it is shit, plain and simple. If a game brings a new way of playing games for years to come, then perhaps there is some creativity to be found within the game itself. However, if you are going to judge a sequel simply for being a sequel, then think instead about where it originated from. Think about the game or games preceding it. Do these games warrant sequels? Is the concept open enough for sequels to be had? For example, the reason Super Mario can have several sequels is not because it is the most successful thing on the market, right after the mousepad with breasts, but also because the concept of Mario can be explored in so many areas, from land to world to fucking galaxies. The same goes for Zelda. Every Zelda game is in its own right a new entry to a long legend that has been going on for centuries in a fantasy world, which is evolving and expanding with every entry. Call of Duty has, from what I have heard, introduced more of a story, and maybe they are working on a new design for future entries. But would you say that these franchises warrant sequels? That is up to you. The only thing I ask for in the end is that you should not judge a game simply for being a sequel, and instead judge it upon being what the game really is. If you don't want to play a game, then don't. But if you do, see it for what it actually is, and not for what it might have been. I am Albert Kruger, and one of my favorite games of all time is a sequel. And I also really fucking despise Metroid Other M.